Okay, so this was the PVT that you said that you did the harass style.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like the main things I got out of watching the replay, my fourth was extremely late, and I just didn't quite have the tech. I think making the choice to eventually tech to Arbiters is fine, but I needed more Templar to help that transition.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience in it, but I know that I think the Arbiters are even optional. Like, I don't think you have to ever go Arbiter. Like, in theory, you don't even need Templar if you are aggressive enough, but obviously they help a lot.
Yeah.
So, okay. So he's going normal factory build. Okay, factory bunker expand. Which you... So you scout it and you know that it's a factory bunker expand because there's a bunker but no CC. Or at least you highly suspect it.
Yeah.
So in theory, if you wanted, you could cut... You're going for 23, yeah. You could cut your goon and or your range right now for it a little faster if you wanted, but that's optional.
Right.
Was that pylon late? I think it was. So did you delay the pylon on purpose? Or...
No, I'm just bad.
Okay, I didn't know if it was intentional or not. I was trying to understand it.
No,
Okay.
I totally wasn't thinking.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Robo 3 gates. Everything's pretty normal. I think your ops timing will be good if you start it. Nice. Okay. Good. I assume you saw the siege.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything looks really good so far. Need to start more observers for sure.
Yeah, I like what Paula did in his video with the one observer to scout the main and one observer to demine and then go into Reaver.
Okay.
It just makes it easy to makes it easy to take a third and not really have to worry about
Right.
doing a whole bunch of damage to make it worth it.
Do you have a second ops though? I only see one.
I might have screwed up and only made
Okay.
one, but definitely I usually make two.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you're going to go into Reaver here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which... This is definitely a style that I'm not super familiar with. I think the Reaver will be on time for a 3 factory type push, so that's probably okay. So did you see the armory? I think you did. So at this point, he's got no third, 3 factories, and an armory, which kind of... 3 factories with machine shops, which kind of signifies that he's going to do a 2 base push. Otherwise, there would probably be a CC down by now.
Right.
Damn.
He played super weird. That was part of the reason I was confused on what happened.
Okay.
Is I just couldn't quite understand what he was going for. If I recall correctly, he did not end up pushing and just took like a third off 6 factories. I'm like, what the hell?
Okay. Your probe count is low. So at 9 minutes, you should be around 60. I think you're about 10 short. Yeah, 52. So if you're consistently building, you should be at 60 at this point. So that there must be some gaps there, which is significant. 8 probe. You're got a hell of a supply advantage, though. I think so far everything makes sense. I'm not sure how effective reavers are this late, but if Kala does it, it must be good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, with the observers, you can tend to take a pretty fast third anyway, so I feel like it's just
Right.
it's like 3 hatch muta. Like, do the mutas really need to do that much?
Sure. But then I guess consider that alternatively you could have arbiters almost done by now, but it does pin him
That's
back,
true.
which is nice. So at this point, like, you know, he's either he's doing a 2-base push or he's just not doing anything. Like, he's effectively doing a 2-base push. If he takes a third right now, it's still like semi all in at this point. So I like the gateway counts. Yeah, everything. I think I see no issues so far. Everything makes sense. Let's see your vision here. Yes, your map vision is poor here.
Right.
At this point, you've
So
made.
probably just after
I think you haven't been using your robo enough because you should have either more observers or you should have already had like another um, shuttle and reaver ready, but you're not actively using your robo. So like he could have a hidden base right now. It doesn't even have to be hidden. It could be right here, and we wouldn't know at this point. So I think obviously now you see that he's taking it, which is why you start taking your fourth. But I think your fourth timing is totally fine considering the way that he took his third. Like, I think so far everything you've done except for the probe production and the robo usage is like perfect.
Okay.
And this really isn't the mass shuttle High Templar style that you're doing right now, because you've given them a lot of time at this point. You're doing a Arbiter style, but with High Templar at this point, because it's 13 minutes and like basically nothing's happened, right? Like the theory behind that build is that you never let up. Like you reduce the SCV count and you reduce the tank count constantly, so that they never get to the big ball. But in this scenario, I mean, they're kind of behind in supply, but not because you've done a ton of damage. I mean, the Reaver did some, but the theory behind the Templar style is you would be pumping shuttles right now. Like you'd just be constantly producing shuttles and have 3 or 4 shuttles right now and be storm dropping, running in with a small group of goons and a million zealots and dropping on top of them over and over. But I think that window's basically closed for you.
Okay.
He's taking a fourth. Yeah, it's really weird style from him. This is upgrades. His factory count's so low. Holy crap. So I don't think you see this. No. So on polypoid is always difficult to engage in PvT. I find. I don't know why it's so hard, but I find it really freaking hard to engage Terran. But basically, you kind of have to catch them. And if they push over a ridge, you kind of have to catch them so that half your army's here and half your army is here. Because pushing through here is too narrow, and pushing through here is too narrow. You kind of have to do a two-prong attack if they push around the radius. And if they push through the middle, it becomes a lot easier because you just wait until they're like in this clumped area, and then you have a nice big area here to push into. So the middle is easier, but typically Terran's going to push like this. So ideally in this scenario, because you're maxed, you would be out on the map and have an observer here and an observer here. So if he pushes this way, we can kind of set up right here. So we have a nice big arc like this. If he pushes this way, then we're set up here and here. So you kind of keep your ball here in the middle, spread it out so that there's some goons on either side. And then if he, whichever direction he pushes, you just rush that way. Set up as quick as you can, rush up into this area, and then engage in here. But the fact that you didn't see it is problematic. Okay, so you sack it. So yeah, at this point, I mean, you had a 50 supply lead. So in theory, he should easily be crushed here or here. And even here, you're missing a lot of your army here. Okay. So that's the big issue. Okay, so you do pull back, which is good, and you're collecting your army. So if you're kind of halfway in between the two styles, right? Like, if you're doing the super aggressive style, you want to have a lower probe count. So I don't know exactly how much the pros go for, but typically you want 65 with the arbiter style, and I think you want closer to 55 with the hyper aggressive style, because you're trading so often. You don't need like 20 gates. You just pump out of a smaller number, so you can have a fewer number of probes as well. So your probe count is too high for that style, but then you don't have the shuttles to ferry over the High Templar and the Zealots. So it feels like you're halfway in between two different styles here. Okay. So I think either commit to one or the other by being much more aggressive with the new style, and just pump constant shuttles. Like, I've seen best with like 6 to 8 shuttles, and that's just normal. Like, that's the way you play. You use them to harass, but then typically you have like a control group of goons, and then everything else is in a shuttle, and you just fly them over and just Zealot bomb and Templar bomb the army.
Okay.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's kind of the key. You're playing a different composition, but in the same way that you would play an arbiter play. So I think it's just suboptimal in that regard.
With the aggressive style, then I don't know exactly how to say it. Like, when should I be harassing, and when should I try and go for just like if I see their army and think, oh, I could probably bust that, I just have to develop an intuition for when I should go to the bust, and if I can't, then I should harass. I
think those kind of somewhat go hand in hand. The harass, like just throwing a shuttle with some Reavers and Templar, I mean that, or Templar, I mean that's more of an early game thing where you're like your first shuttle with that, or when you don't have a standing army at all, you go and harass that way. But the idea is that when you have Zealots, you should be trading, right? Like, when you have a significant number of zealots, you should run into their army and zealot bomb and storm so that you reduce the tank count. And you have to
Right.
keep that ball rolling constantly. So I think once you're past the initial like Reaver drop, and maybe like one High Templar drop, once you're like pumping out of 10 gates and have a significant number of zealots producing each round, wait like 2 rounds of zealots and go. Like, you have to keep the pressure on constantly so that you're delaying expansions and constantly reducing the tank count. Once they have a high tank count, you're done. I don't think that style has legs if their tank count gets high enough. So,
Makes sense.
but here, I mean, you clean up well, or well enough that you still have a army advantage. And the harass here, he's on 2 bases. Actually, he's on 2 bases right now. About to be 4, but you're fine. Yeah, I mean, you're fine, but like, he's got 2-1 with hopefully 3-1 on. Yeah, he's got 3-1 on the way. So you're not in great shape, but you are maxed.
All right.
So you only want to engage when you have your whole army together. I mean, that's, in hindsight, that's always obvious, but it's always a struggle to actually do it. But like, actually, this is probably a better example. I was going to go to the first one, but this is a better example, this second engagement. So like, you engage right when he pushes down, which is great if you had your whole army here. Like, it's fine because you're maxed out, so you want to trade fairly early and then macro up and then engage him again once he pushes further. But you don't have your whole army here, so there's no threat. Like, Terran always feels scary, and it feels like you have to instantly jump on them, and like, you have to constantly fight the urge to attack move them, because if you sit here, he has to siege right now, and then you just back up and you're safe. There's no base that's being attacked right now. There's 0 damage done by Terran. So if you just sit here, force the siege, run back, and like just throw this army right here, grab your army just like you're doing, and sit it right here, and then go, that's going to go 10 times better for you. Because right now you're engaging with half your army in a line. And then as these zealots fall, you're slowly walking dragoons in. Which, I mean, the storm is great, but just imagine if you waited 10 seconds. Like, just 10 seconds here.
Yeah.
I went a little too late, but... So if you just 10 seconds, all of these units, this whole like control group and a half, will be right here, and you can spread your army out in a nice line here and go in, and you would lose like just zealots and everything else would be dead. But instead you trade away like an extra control group or 2 even that you don't need to.
Right.
So the theory is well, actually, yeah, you should have kept going there. But the theory is always that you keep throwing an army at Terran until they run out of money, but that's only true if you have more bases than them. And it's only true if you're trading efficiently. So right now it's 2 base Terran versus 3, well, actually basically 2 base Protoss. So you can't trade inefficiently like this. You have to trade efficiently versus Terran in this scenario. So at this point, it's rough. Like, Terran's on about to be 3-1. and he's denying the space. So it's not over, but it's close, right? So again, we're just running in, which in this case he is actively attacking a base, so sometimes that's necessary, so I don't mind that. But I think that whenever we get to this point in a PvT, it's always hard to continue and give advice, because the damage is kind of done at this point, where you are not ahead enough at this point. Once you get behind Terran in a situation like this, it's almost impossible to win from it. So I think, I mean, there was the probe issue and the stylistic choice of not going arbiters, which I think is fine, to be honest. Like, this army composition, if you just went for a few more dragoons in your first army, I think going High Templar is a fine stylistic choice. And up to this point, I think everything you've done is really good. But observers in the right positions and then meeting this army in this first push out is really the only concerns that I really have here. So if you had seen this army push out, you would have never taken the damage on this base. You would have kept this base, which would have snowballed. Honestly, you would have crushed this army if you had just met it right here with your whole army. So I think that's the next step for you, is when you hit max, what do you do?
Yeah, get out on the map.
Right.
Yeah.
Because once you have cannons at each base, there's zero reason to have your army sitting here. It does nothing for you. Whereas sitting here and being ready for a push, that at minimum slows down Terran from expanding.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the key. And honestly, in this game, you could have jammed in and probably killed him too, which I very frequently do in PvT. So like right now, if your army was positioned here, you could just take the high ground, and then he has to push his own high ground against a maxed Protoss. So I think just right when you max out, get aggressive, I think is what I'm trying to get at, especially on a map like Polyploid. If it's like Fighting Spirit, then you can't, because everything's super safe. But on Polyploid, you can push right up this ramp. I mean, it's surprisingly vulnerable to push up here. So.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any questions, or good on this one? Okay. Okay. Whew. I am recording. Thank goodness. Do you want to do your PVZ or go to somebody else's game? I guess Seraph and Cold Warp Gates are here. Either way.
This PVZ confused the fuck out of me, so if I could get your input, that'd
Sure.
be great. But obviously, I don't want to monopolize.
No, that's fine. I should be able to get through all the replays today, so it's not a problem. Crazy's typing. Counterattacks are really annoying to deal with a TVP. From a T perspective, if you have 200 greater, I'm happy to engage your army. So if you feel like you're behind, maybe try counterattacking. For me, it's really annoying to deal with. Yeah, I think the trouble with that is when you're behind as Protoss, you have to deal with the Terran army, right? Like, yes, you can counterattack, but if you're behind, that means you're probably even-ish on bases, meaning you have to maintain your bases just as much as the Terran does. So counterattacking becomes less advantageous and more even, I would say. So I typically, when I'm behind in a TVP, try to just trade super efficiently instead. Which I don't know if that's right, but I feel like that's the way that I try to play it, I guess. Because I need more bases. I mean, I try to deny bases with like a DT or something, but counterattacking is typically good either when you're ahead or when you are behind an army but ahead in eco and production, so that you can counter, lose a base. Who cares? If you go from 4 to 3 bases and they go from 3 to 2, that's advantageous for you. So that's when counterattacking is better. So, but anyway, this is a PVZ. Now that I'm a Zerg, I think I'll just examine it from the Zerg's perspective, right? Yeah. I've spent 3 hours learning Zerg, so it's fine. I can tell you all about it, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Forge Fast Expand. Big fan. Second Scout, no hatch, so it is... Oh, and he's... Ah, he hit the drone. Nice. What a bastard.
Yeah, fucked up.
If you don't know, 2:05 is the timing that a hatch should go down with an overpull. So if you really want to, you could sit here until 2:05, and if there's no drone coming up, then it's a 9 pull or earlier. Just
Okay.
optionally, you're welcome to do that. Or if you scout him first and you like don't know when he's gonna take his nat, 2:05 is when it starts. So it's a good timing to know. Oops. Okay, 1313. Gas was quite early for him. I don't know timings, but I know that was early. And you're going 16, 17 gas, very good. Got an idle probe, okay. So our core goes down, now we need to watch for a layer here. So at this point, if there's no layer in your main, you should leave and go to the natural to try to look for either a layer or hydroden. Once your cybercore is started, wait for like 10-15 seconds, and then go to the nat, because they're almost assuredly going to make a layer or a hydroden here. Yeah, especially now. So when you see nothing like this, like it has to be at the natural at this point. Like staying in the main doesn't give you anything at this point, because clearly they're hiding it down here. So you absolutely need to move down to the natural to scout earlier than this.
Okay.
Did you see the layer? I don't think you did.
For some reason, my stream is cutting out, but I believe that I saw it.
Yeah. Okay. Is everybody else's stream okay, or?
It's fine for me.
Okay. Okay. Alright, let's see if you saw the layer. No, you didn't. Okay. So now, because we didn't go down, we don't know what it is, so we kind of have to assume that it's a Hydra build, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything looks good. You're sending another probe, at least trying to. Second cannon, I like it. Because we have 3 zealots and they're far back, I think you're fine with 2 because your Corsair's on time. You just have to make sure to send it in the right path, which you are. Okay, everything's good. Okay, we still see nothing. We see second gas started but not finished, so it looks like a normal 3-hatch Spire, 5-hatch Hydra type build. Archives about on time, that's good. Probe production at 6:30, we should have 40 probes, so we're a little light there. So you're down 6 probes right now. If you want, we can dig into that, or you can just look. Actually, this may be helpful. Actually, Seraph, I told Seraph this the other day, and it was quite eye-opening for him, I think. There's a couple of probe cuts that are actually really important for this build. First one is on 30 supply. So on 30 supply, you typically want to, which you're on 29 right now. I think that was just because you didn't make a probe here. Okay. So on 30 supply, that's when you want to kind of cut and add. Let me start over. So normally with this +1/+1 build, at 30 supply, you want to actually cut probes for a short time. You want to get your assimilator up and then add a pylon and start your +1, start your third zealot, and then resume probe production. So it's a pretty long probe cut. It's not too bad, but it's significant enough that it's worth noting, because if you don't do this probe cut here, you're going to be blocked. It just makes it a lot smoother if you do a probe cut at 30.
Yep.
And then the second probe cut is on 40. So that's normally when your first Corsair will start, and then right before it finishes, like right when you're about to queue up the next one, you would normally get supply locked at 42. So you should actually cut probes at 40, and then you'll have supply to make the second Corsair. So like, because you started your Corsair a little bit late in this one, normally you'd be stuck a little bit. So instead of producing those 2 probes, it's better to make this Corsair. So those 2 probe cuts are pretty significant, and I do basically every PVZ. The rest of the time, you should be making constant probes until at least 6:30, but it depends on what you've chosen to do.
Yeah.
So I think those 2 cuts are always good, though.
Okay.
Okay, so 6 zealots. So 7 zealots, okay, perfect. Corsairs, we're on 4. 5th one's coming, +1's coming. Okay. So this is legit. Good timing.
And this is the part that I'm a little unsure about. I did sack all my zealots, but I supply blocked them down to like 56 out of 22, so I feel like I got an insane amount of overlords, but I just don't know if it's ever enough damage against Zerg.
Okay. Yeah, so if I saw this amount of Hydras, I would not trade, personally.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit stylistic, but this amount of so at this point, that's obviously good that you've dealt this much damage with overlords, but you are now vulnerable. So you now have to make cannons. Whenever you trade your zealots like that, you have to add cannons, usually up to 4 or 5. So you do, which is good. But it's not crazy damage. Like, he's got 7 overlords making right now. And he's fine, right? Like, he's got a standing army.
Right.
He's totally safe from you. You have no map control now. Like, it's I'm not saying it's bad to trade like that. I personally avoid it because I like to keep the map control, but that is what
Right.
you're losing. He does not have to make another Hydra for a very long time because he knows that you have to make cannons and you're making Templar and getting your you will get your Robotech and your goons and everything. So he's totally safe. He can take a fourth, he can drone up all he wants and have no repercussions. So yes, you've dealt damage, but he has free reign to make all these drones now. And honestly, the Hydras he's making right now are unnecessary. He doesn't even have to do that. Whereas if you had, if you had the Zealots, it's fewer cannons. You could probably get away with 3 cannons instead of 5, which accelerates your gate count, and you can get into a push later. So he has to respect that. So yeah, he's just ahead. I think 2 things are the reason why he's ahead right now. One is that you did miss that significant number of probes early, where you were 6 behind at 6:30, which doesn't sound like a ton, but it all compounds. So 6 probes that are late are going to make your gates late, which makes your army late. So that's part of why your supply is down. But then you also traded those zealots for cannons, basically. So you had 14 supply worth of zealots that you traded for 0 supply from him. Which it traded for overlords, which is fine, but I think you basically traded zealots for like 6 overlords and some zerglings, which is not advantageous for you, I would say. And we have 7 gates, about to be 6 here. So you're active with your Corsairs, so you should know that he's only on 3 bases, which is really good for you. If Zerg stays on 3 bases for this long, it's actually not atypical for you to be even in supply here. You always do really well with your push-outs, I've noticed. Like whenever you're pushing out in PvZ. Well, you're losing your Templar now, but usually you do quite well with your PvZ push-outs. Yeah, so here we're just behind. So I think I named those 2 issues earlier, but it wasn't a game-ending moment at that point. Because he's on 3 bases, it's pretty typical to be even here, and all you have to do is wait for your gates to kick in. 5 hatch Zerg will, I guess he's on 6, but 5 or 6 hatch Zerg will start losing a supply advantage against an 8 gate Protoss, which I actually didn't notice this one, so you're on 8 gates. So you can actually just sit and wait because he's on 3 bases. If he took a 4th and was droning, then I would say that you do need to push out and take a 3rd relatively quick here. But you can just sit here. Like this push out that you do is not necessary because he's not droning. And I know that's like the hardest part of PvZ is to know like when he's being aggressive and when he's droning. But you do have these Corsairs active and know that he's on 3 base. And if you scout and see this number of Hydras and this number of Hydras at your front, you know that he's being quite aggressive. So you can just sit. This push out right here is not necessary. The storms are good, but if you had waited a little bit and had like one more round, like this round of units, then you probably could have pushed, or even waiting even later than that.
Fitting Protoss.
Yeah.
Sitting Protoss.
Yeah, sitting Protoss is great. And, I mean, you want to. So that's kind of the that's the hardest part of PvZ is knowing when you should push and when you should not push. And in this scenario, you definitely should not push because he is on 3 base and not droning. So 44 probes on 2 bases is just fine against 45 probes or drones on 3. So here you just want to sit. You could sit back until you have your big 2-1 army, kill your gate so that you don't get blocked there, and push out, and that's totally fine. It's actually it's much better than the inefficient trade that you made, because
Yeah.
now you have 1 Templar, and that's like that's a guarantee that you can't be pressuring. So like 1 Templar, I mean you're pushing here, but that's not wise because I mean obviously in hindsight he's ahead in supply, but the fact that you have 1 Templar and that his 4th is so late means that you don't need to push here either. It's not only that you don't have the army strength, it's that you don't need to. I mean you're pressuring him by taking this 3rd. He has to take he either has to attack you or take more expansions, in which case he's already behind because this 4th is so late. So just sitting here on this ramp taking this 3rd and then immediately taking a 4th is really the right answer here, I would say.
Okay.
So yeah, I think not committing when you see that number of units, and finding where you're missing probes early on are the 2 big ones, and then the 3rd one is if Zerg doesn't take a 4th and has a low drone count, don't push.
Yeah, that's totally what I did not realize. Like,
Yep.
And then I watched the replay and they're even supplying. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Why doesn't Zerg just do this every single?
It's pretty normal if
funny.
they stay on 3 base actually. To
Yeah,
be
I just wasn't
even.
aware of that.
Yeah.
I thought I was just absolutely dog shit at macro, which obviously my macro could have been better because I missed a bunch of probes. But
Right. It's pretty typical, right? Right when your 8 gate like kicks in and you get a couple rounds out of the 8 gates, you should peak over them by like 5 to 10 supply. But if they're on 3 base, you're basically even in supply. That's normal. So. Okay. Cold warp gates. You want to do yours? Nice. Both of you are here. Okay. You guys don't submit very many PvPs. Is it because you don't like PvP?
yeah, it's not a very fun match.
No, I was practicing for my CPL match tonight, and
Okay.
I ran into this issue that I've had before, but kind of came out really pointedly in this one. I kind of avoid the standard like 2-gate robo play because I have a lot of problems with like pushing, so I can't punish builds that I should be able to punish with it.
Okay.
And then also like I have trouble defending against it, and I think it's due to like my army control in this kind of like Goon Reaver versus Goon Reaver situation.
Okay. I think that's all the more reason to do 2-gate Reaver.
Right, but I like my points.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean a lot of players avoid it specifically.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like apparently my opponent really likes to do 2-gate.
Okay.
But I actually feel pretty good pretty good against that. But also like I want to get better at like how you're supposed to actually play this matchup.
Okay. Sarah's behind by 2 probes. I don't know why.
I did. No, I didn't go Zealot Grizel this game. I don't know. I think it was a different game. I killed some probes with the Zealot. Oh, okay. There you go.
Oh, do we need to look at that, or do you know what happened? Okay. All right. We're good then. Okay.
I had the money, it just didn't happen.
Okay. 26 robo, okay, versus 28 robo basically. Okay. So are you going for a 1 gate expand or?
Yeah,
Okay.
this one is 1 gate expand.
Okay, versus 2 gate robo.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like the 26. I actually put my robo down on 25 when I do a 1 gate expand,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's about the same. I guess what I'm saying is don't do the 28. Definitely get it before the goon. So the push out here, I guess it's fine from both of you because you didn't scout a second gate, but it's like kind of it's a little bit risky to do
Mm-hmm.
this kind of push. Usually if you don't see that you have a range advantage, meaning that you started your range faster than them, usually I wouldn't do the push.
Okay.
You can, but then you're adding variance to your game, basically, because it's going to come down to micro. Because at best, you might find that he's like super skimped, but 90% of the time, if you're going for the build you're going for, he's either going to be even or ahead of you in
Yeah,
army.
I think I was trying to like poke to see like is he going GTs or
Right.
like, is he going some crazy thing, but I think
Right.
since I'm kind of committed to going observer first, I probably shouldn't even worry about it too much.
If you do, I mean, you can always consider just going with the goons, because then you don't trade away the zealot. Because you can at least poke,
Okay.
scout, say, oh,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got this amount of stuff. That's a normal amount of stuff. It's not a 2 gate, and it's not a super fast DT, so you see it and run back. But trading the zealot, I mean, it's a little stylistic, but you just have to remember it is a risk to push out, especially because you went 26 and your Dragoon is delayed and his is not. So like if you made it here, he would have 4 goons and a zealot versus your 3 goons and a zealot. So there's like even doing a standard build that would be behind. So because you pushed out and saw an even army, I mean it tells you it kind of narrows it down so that it's probably not DT, but other than that, you really don't know. He could be 3-gating right now, and you would have no idea. If he was 3-gating, you would be dead right here, because your army is sitting here.
So like, should I not sit my army down there, or should I just like do something more to figure out if it's 3-gate?
Well, you see, it's a bit of a gamble. I mean, that's PvP,
yeah,
right?
I mean, like if it's a gamble, then okay, it's a gamble. But like, is
It's
there something that I can do about that, or is it just a gamble?
I mean, you can sneak a probe out. I'm a big fan of sneaking a probe out and like leaving it somewhere in the push path, because if you have a probe sitting right here or right here and you see him pushing, and you can just run up the ramp, which is bad because you have to cancel your nexus. That's really bad for you.
Yeah.
But if he was 3-gating right now and he kills your army, then you lose the game. If you cancel the nexus and run up, then you at least don't lose the game. So I would sit a probe right here, basically the whole time, and then I mean he could push up this way, but I would have a probe in the main push path, so that you get a pretty large percentage of your losses of just a 3-gate coming across. You'll scout it and at least have a playable game, because canceling a nexus and throwing down 2 more gateways and pumping reavers, you can at least push down against the 3-gate and have a game basically. So that's all I would do. Okay, so we are scouting. The most important thing to see is the natural, to see if they have a nexus.
I think I checked that, and so
Oh,
I
you
know
did?
that
Okay.
he's gonna come, but like it felt like in game I felt like he was really late, and like I had 3 gateways, so I was like, all right, I had 2 reavers, I had 3 gateways, I should feel fine. And then he kind of smacked me.
Okay. So if you rush your observer straight to this nexus, you would have seen that he is not making a nexus. So you could actually keep pumping reavers instead of a
So
shuttle.
You'd rather have 3 reavers than 2 reavers in a shuttle?
In these small numbers, yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. Once it gets a little bigger so that you have to fight out in the open, I think that the shuttle becomes a little stronger. But yeah, in this scenario, you just keep pumping Reavers.
Okay.
Have you seen the Jinjin video on One Gate Robo Expand?
Probably, but not so
Okay.
much that I remember it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a similar scenario, and he just pumps Reavers. He says just keep making Reavers, just
Okay.
keep doing it. So cutting probes is good. I guess you're scouting to see if he hit one. Yeah, that's fair. But the fact that
On the
he's
Jinjin note real quick though.
Yep.
He also does a shield battery. That way,
Yes.
if a Reaper hits, you can heal it up so it doesn't die in 2 hits, it dies in 3.
exactly.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like when you see no nexus like this, yeah, just throw down a battery immediately. And there's a DeWalt likes to do it where he sits a battery way back here, so that it doesn't get in the way, and your Reaver can sit super far back and just heal up, run back, heal up, run back. So like a second pylon back here is nice. Honestly, it does. Feels like it's quite late for the push. I don't know. I haven't looked super detailed on what's happened on this side, but it does feel a little bit late at this point. But anyway, so the things to think about when you're defending here. So obviously you do want a battery here. It will soak up some damage, but like I said, it'll also heal up, or like Seraph said, it'll heal up your Reavers, which is obviously good. But it's all about arcs. That's the most important thing. So if the ideal scenario is you want them to fight in the smallest choke possible, which is right here.
Yeah.
So you want your army such that it will engage right here, which you're basically there. You're maybe a little bit forward, like you could come back a little bit. And maybe even in these numbers, you may even want to put like a goon or two up here and keep your Reavers fairly central and back.
It's like further back than they are now.
Well, one's in the shuttle, but
Yeah. Okay, further back than that one is now.
yeah. So if you put the second one down here, yes, this is good. I would pull these Dragoons back just a little bit, and these Dragoons back a little bit. Okay. This game is the fun part. So
Yeah, this is the part that I struggle with.
Yes.
On both sides.
So the fact that you made a shuttle with 2 Reavers means that you do have the option of doing the Reaver game. So that's one thing that you can do is you sit your Reavers out front with your shuttle, and you do exactly the same thing he's doing. And just have your Reavers sitting here, shoot his Reavers, and then pick them up. And you both can play that game if you want. But it's advantageous to you because you have more eco than he does. So this is all theoretical. Like you have to have crazy APM and all that fun stuff to be able to do it. But in theory, that's advantageous for you because every time that he shoots and duds, you are building more units than he is. He's on 2 gates. You're on 3, but you could have more at this point if you cut probes. You could have 5 gates probably. But you're also pumping Reavers, which he can't do. Like he can make Reavers, but they're not coming.
Yeah, they can't make it there in time.
So time is on your side. So waiting for the pylon to bust is great, but playing that game with the shuttles is even better if you can. But it's hard. So let's watch the bust, see what you do. Okay, so running forward and sniping like that is it's good and bad.
Yeah.
So
And my shuttle was really late in like getting to
Yeah.
the fight.
But-
I'm really scared about putting it in front because then I feel like it'll
but you don't want to take the fight there. That fight is disadvantageous to you.
Yeah, it's just if I don't, I feel like I'm gonna sit there and just get scared to death.
Right.
Like if I do the thing with the microing my Reavers and shuttles, I can avoid taking damage, I guess.
Yeah, that's that's the ideal, but this is always a really hard scenario, and honestly, I feel like it's maybe even advantageous to the aggressor. I feel I struggle with this a lot as well, but like the fact that you pull these back, I mean, the fact that you took a scarab is really painful, but the fact that you pulled back is great. But here we have 13 goons and 2 reavers and a shuttle versus and a zealot, so we're against 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. So he has a 1 goon advantage, which with your defender's advantage should be about equal, right? So if it's going to come down to arcs at that point. So the fact that he is here pushing in with even armies means that you're at an advantage, and if you just kind of imagine that this map like flipped upside down, you could do the same exact thing to him that he's doing to you. You can have this shuttle up front and do the same thing, and you're equal except that you have the advantage because you're in a choke. So I think keeping the reavers forward when you have the shuttle like this is correct, but if you don't have the shuttle or if you don't want to do the micro, pushing out right now I don't think is the right answer because it's so far away. He's shooting this pylon, which means that he's this far out. If you have your goons way up in here, and even up on this ramp here with your reavers here, his reavers have to be like here to do damage. And that's super easy to snipe, right? Like his army has to be like clumped up here and to protect it, and they have to be so far forward that you can just run up your front goons and pressure it without being vulnerable. Because if he has his reavers here, his goons have to be in a smaller arc so that you can take a shot, back up, and then fight deeper in your base.
Okay. So like against this kind of reaver poke, I should pull my arc like even further back, basically.
You want his reavers to come as forward as possible, and then right when he's in range to start hitting probes or goons, because obviously, you know, it's hard to put a shitload of goons out here, but right when he pokes in as to be able to take a shot, that's when you immediately jump on him. Because it's hard for him to move his army and his reavers at the same time, so as these reavers are walking forward, they're vulnerable. So you can rush forward, try to snipe it, and back up. I think the key is to back up, because you want to snipe it and then run back. So when you're out here, he's got this giant arc that he's engaging you with, and that's really bad for you. But if you ran forward and pressured like you did, but here, then you can just pressure, and right when he picked up that reaver, you would snipe one, which is great, and then right when he picks up the second one, you just run back. Because now you have 2 reavers and he has 1. And if he attacks into this choke, reavers eat it alive. It will just destroy any amount of goons that are right here. So you just run forward, snipe it if you can, and then right when he picks up, you back up. And then you repeat. If he keeps shooting reaver shots, then you just do it again, and just keep doing it until you're either you snipe this because he messed up, or he commits and you have reavers fighting into a choke, or your gates kick in and you just overwhelm him.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that's dealing with the reaver is the key, and I think it's being patient, sitting as far back as you possibly can, and jumping on it only when it's vulnerable, I think is the big key. And then if you can, use your shuttle to fight.
Okay. We can watch the rest of the game, but it's mostly like I'd lost in this fight because he kills a bunch of probes. And then he gets his own base.
There's nothing wrong with watching goons die. It's such a nice sound effect. So even here, like, in theory, so obviously he could out micro you, but 3 reavers and 2 goons sitting right here and drilling your probes, you could survive this. Like, that you really
But I,
could.
like, but I have to have like something to give me vision to drill the probe.
Well, drill. I mean, you do,
Yeah.
for one. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you had those 3 Reavers back here and 2 Goons, when he rushes in, if he micros well, it won't work because he can lead with Goons and split them and spread them out. But you almost clean this up as it is. If you had sat back here, you still would have held this. Because like you're still ahead in probes, right? Like you can throw away your whole natural and still be, I guess not ahead, but even, right? So I think you're underestimating the power of chokes in PvP. So like, if his goons are here and your reavers are right here, you can defend a ridiculous amount of Protoss with reavers back here.
Okay.
So even with that jump forward, I would have just sat my reavers back here. So when he comes in, you can have a nice meat grinder there. This bothers me. The fact that you put your pylon forward and your gate backwards.
So it's so I put the shield battery by the ramp.
Okay.
If I
All
have
right.
to.
All right.
Or the robo right by the ramp too.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. There is a thought process. It could be valid or not, but there
It's
was a thought process
weird,
behind it.
but I guess it makes sense. Okay, so this was Zealot Core Zealot.
That's what I'm doing because like I'm pretty sure the guy's gonna go 2 gate. So like if I get practice like doing that and then playing the normal, I feel pretty good.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay, so now you're the two gate robo player.
Yeah.
Did you cut on 29 probes?
I don't think so.
Okay. I always feel like that's the
Do you just stop making probes, or do you just cut for a little bit while you?
So if you want to do a real push, then you cut hard at 29. So you would do a 25 or 26 robo, and then a 29 second gate, and then you just cut probes. And the probe cut is basically until you push, surprisingly. I put there's in the rep pack that's pinned in Protoss Help, I have an example game of this. So there's a cut at 29, which it looks like you kind of do, but
I think I go back to making probes.
yeah, okay.
At this point. Yeah.
You can't build the robo and all the shit you need to build out of the robo plus 2 gate goons while producing, which it looks like you're like kind of doing. You got a probe here and there, but I recommend a hard cut at 29.
So is there something that you see or that you scout that makes you decide between cutting and not cutting, or is it just if you go to get robo, you're going to cut?
So personally, in the modern way that I play PvP, I will only 2 gate robo if I'm going to do an attack.
Okay.
I think that if you're going to expand, even a 1 gate robo is a little bit middle of the road nowadays, which feels weird to say, but like
It's the faster expand other than like 12 next.
Well, the standard way to do a 1 gate robo expand is to start your Reaver and then take the Nexus. But that is punished if your opponent just goes for like skipping the Observer or skipping the Reaver and just taking a Nexus before Reaver or even before Bay. Even some players just go 1 gate Nexus 3 gate, which is super strong against this. Like there's a lot of just
Okay, but that's kind of like a gamble, though, right? Like,
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Um,
so it's not like you can't like scout and be like, oh, it's totally safe for me to go 1 gate, expand it to 3 gate. You kind of just
it,
gamble.
it's always
Unless
no,
you get
no.
really lucky and you get a probe in, like
Right.
you see everything.
Yes, and then I mean you're dead to DT, but that's
Yeah.
basically it. I mean,
Okay, I mean like I can accept that. I just wanted to know if there's
Yeah.
a difference between you scout something and then you do that, or you just
no,
go.
no. One gate Nexus 3 gate I think is pretty much a gamble most of the time that I see it. But it pays off against robo builds for sure.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I think 2 gate robo and 2 gate robo expand and 1 gate robo expand are actually fairly moderate builds now.
Mhm.
Like they're not super greedy and they're not aggressive, obviously,
Okay.
in any regard. But anyway, so like I think your the key thing with this push is your robo usage, obviously. I think your shuttle was actually started a little bit late. If I
I think I got pylon blocked at some point or something.
so you should start it right now, because your robo is the most important thing to be pumping right now. Because obviously you want to
Okay.
push with 2 reavers and a shuttle as soon as you possibly can. So you start 2 dragoons here, but your robo is doing nothing.
Okay.
So actually, I want to see how long that was, so that we can subtract it off the other end. So like 450. So it's like 20 seconds or so.
Uh-huh.
And you do go observer as well, which is it's optional, I guess. I mean, you can do it if you want. It's safe, but if you're
So
gonna,
is it that common to just go 2 gate robo and skip the observer?
I think it is. I think you get the observatory and then you just don't use it. If you see DTs, you just jam up your ramp as best you can, cancel what you're
Okay.
making, and make it an observer.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Which, if you jam up your ramp enough, then you're safe. You might lose a couple goons, but who cares, because you survive.
you should be,
you know,
you
and
should
then,
be way ahead against a DT player if you already have 2 gate robo.
yeah, you'll have a shuttle ready, and probably, or maybe a reaver, probably not, but you probably cancel the reaver. But you can go harass them and get even, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the observer is, if you want to do it,
Okay.
you can, but if you're going to commit to a push like this, I would just commit.
Okay, because I figured like I would need to wait for enough goons anyway that the observer wouldn't actually slow me down, but that changes it if I can just straight go for shuttle reavers.
I mean, you don't need that many goons. I mean, the goons are obviously good, but the most important part of this push is the reavers. So you want to rush for reavers as soon as you possibly can. So like in theory, we had 20 seconds where we didn't start, and there was also
The observer.
the observer, which I don't know how long the observer takes to make, probably 25 seconds or something, maybe. So let's just say you would hit at like here.
Yeah, it's exactly 25.
Nice. So like, just imagine if you were pushing right now with, or if you were here, right here, right now, with 2 reavers and a shuttle, and obviously you wouldn't have this many goons. You'd be short a few, but let's just say you had like that many. He's dead. Right. The reavers are the key. I guess he's not dead, but it would be really hard for him to hold comparatively. So let's see what you do. I don't mind this. I think it's fine, but
I think I had vision of the reaver or something.
okay.
Nothing scary hit me there. So, like,
Oof. So time is on his side, right?
yeah.
So we can take our expansion and we can macro, but we need to be committing here. Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, I'm so
Yep.
like so gross.
It's okay. So if you need to kill the pylon, right? Like you're like 2 shots away. But
I'm like
I
I'm,
think
like, trying to hit his reavers.
yeah.
And it's It's not going very well.
So if he doesn't have a shuttle, all right, so let's just watch it and then we'll talk about it. So this is the big thing: is he moved his reavers back. That's the most important thing that has been in this engagement, is that his reaver is really far back. All of his goons are spread out, yours are clumped, and he has reavers. That's the biggest thing. In any PvP fight, the reaver scarabs are the most important thing, and the two ways to negate that are to kill the reaver or to spread out significantly. So obviously when we're in a choked scenario like this, spreading out is difficult, but that's when it comes down to arcs, right? So you can throw you can throw a goon forward. I guess let me show you that specific point real quick. So like here, when you're in this choke, you want to spread out. You want that your focus needs to be on spreading out. So this clump right here, you can grab some goons and move them forward, and you can grab this goon and move it forward, and focus on getting your reaver scarabs to hit his. But you want this to be spread out against his reaver. That's the important bit, because right now the scarabs are just gonna melt this. So spreading out is the key here. But so as the aggressor here, like we said before, you can play the reaver game, which it looks like you did. Like you are the aggressor, so you get to choose where these scarabs are going. So if you want to kill this pylon, fine, it will be helpful for later, but it is giving him some time.
I mean, like, I figured it'd be better than doing nothing, but I'm trying to shoot his reavers.
Right. So you notice how before I said you want to jump on the aggressor's reavers when they're vulnerable. So that's exactly what happens here. Is you start ignoring the pylon, your goons are behind, he sees the reavers are coming forward, and he jumps. Or I guess a little bit later he jumps forward.
I think it's the...
But like
time.
Right there, that is the ideal time for him to jump forward. Each time right here he can jump forward, and that's like the correct one. So right here he pressures, and then he should run right back. Like pressure, and then immediately run back is the goal. Because there's only a finite amount of health that the reaver and the shuttle have. So each time you jump forward, you may be trading some goons, but you're producing more, and there's a finite amount of health here. So every shot you get is coming closer to killing this. So as the defender, that's what he's trying to do. As the offender, you're trying to avoid taking that damage. So you want your goons to be as close as possible here without being in range of his reaver. So obviously he's, fairly close here. So you want to get a little bit closer, which, you're not that far off, but this clump could be spread out a little more and a little bit closer. And then your reavers, it's really good that you're focusing this one because, oh, you didn't. Okay, you hit the goons. This reaver's vulnerable because his shuttle's not over it. So if you had sniped this reaver, half of your problem is gone. Goons are not a problem, reavers are. So with that push you did right there, focusing this reaver, and you would have killed it, and that's really huge for you. Here I'm not sure what you're focusing, but it should be right here the whole time. That reaver is the vulnerable part. So you want to run them forward, fire, immediately pick up.
I think I don't have vision, or complete vision. I think it's like reaver's like very on the edge of it. I could be thinking of a different game. Okay, never mind. Looks like I have good vision, so I'm just bad.
Have you seen the Boneth micro video?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like I understand those ideas, but
okay.
I can't pull it. But the stuff you're talking about like looking at the exact point of the choke and like when the reavers are vulnerable, that makes a lot of sense.
So I think, I mean, Reaver Marker's really hard. So, but I think that's all that this comes down to. I mean, the push timing is one thing where you could have pushed earlier, but really, it's the micro where you need to focus on getting your Reavers to fire and then pick them up instantly. And that's it. I mean, it's just micro. So like you should be pushing him forward, moving your shuttle, and then pick him up just like that. And you just have to keep repeating that and getting shots off. And then eventually he'll be worn down. I think you're probably macroing. Do you hotkey your gateways during this?
Yeah.
Okay.
For like up to like 3 bases, pretty much.
Okay. So that's good. So
Yeah, not when I get like 6 gates, but like 2 or 3 gates I can do.
okay. So I don't. I mean, is your full attention here during this, or did you go back and macro? It looks like you made some
I gotta be like
pylons.
rallying probes and making pylons and stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think you made some pylons, which is fine. I mean, you need to do that. But
So when you're doing this, like, do you just pick up after every single shot?
yes.
Or like, okay, because I was trying to like have them out for as long as possible and then pull back in time, and you can see I mess it a bunch of times. So if I just do it after every shot, no matter what, that'll
So,
make it a lot more streamlined.
yeah, if those Reavers were horizontal, that would have killed this Reaver too. Because they would have both shot during that. But like, so you didn't instantly snap back. Actually, so keeping your shuttle moving is
Yeah, I guess
actually
that-
critical here because of the acceleration.
Yeah.
So like your shuttle is always moving so slow here. So you actually click well past them and then back up, which this is pretty good, but you need to like click further. I think you're focusing on the Reavers and not the movement of the shuttle because it requires timing to do. Because you have to like move it forward, back it up, and then grab all 3 and right click the shuttle, and it'll pick up. So the exact movement, and I think Bonnet goes into it in a lot of detail, but you'll drop your Reavers somewhat far back, you'll get them horizontal, walk them forward, right click on a target, take your shuttle, right click past your Reavers, and then right when they fire, you want to, if your shuttle's still moving forward, you want to pick them up instantly, but ideally your shuttle will pass them just a little bit, send it back up, pick them up, and then they're safe. Because even if he pushes forward, your shuttle is moving backwards while you're picking it up. So right when he moves forward, your shuttle should, in theory, be out of range because of the difference between range of Reavers and the goons. But all of that relies on the fact that your shuttle is in constant movement. So I've been thinking about whether you should actually be moving your shuttle horizontally, but that's really hard because your Reavers are moving forward. So I think in theory it's better to do it in like either an angle or horizontal, but that's like impossible to do. So you're normally just move your shuttle forward and then take a shot, pick them up instantly and snap it back and then repeat. And you just keep repeating that. And each double scarab, in theory, does at least a goon's worth of damage, right? Like it'll kill a goon or a Reaver and do splash damage. So you want to just eat away and constantly eat away their army until they're left with, until either you kill the Reavers or you've done enough damage that you think that your army is stronger than his. But when you do that, you don't want to get into this choke if you can avoid it. It's like losing that Reaver is a big deal. Fighting right here is great, but when he moves in here, this is almost impossible for you to win here because of the arc. And I think that's because you didn't do enough damage with the Reavers and because you pushed late. So I think it's all micro at this point. So is that, I probably over talked at this point.
No, I mean that all helps a lot. That's all like
Okay.
things I can actually like use. So that helps a lot.
And the way you learn it is do this build every single PvP.
Yeah, that's what I do when I want to learn a build. I just do it no matter what's going on. And
Okay.
lose a bunch of games, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I got.
The other thing you can do, just this is something that Tim and I figured out when we were doing a bunch of reps a while back. You can just pick up these 2 reavers, drop them in the main.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
yeah,
like
I do a lot of that stuff, like not with like
fine.
the 2-gate like kind of all-in build,
Okay.
but like if I don't feel like I can break him, then I like put my goons at the front and then
Okay.
get him to bring units there and then go drop stuff like that.
Okay. You can totally do it with this build though. It's if you do, I recommend doing 1 shuttle, 1 reaver, and go immediately. And
Okay.
then you just push the front. You show up with a reaver, and
Because you want to hit him like before he has enough goons that you can like split effectively.
right,
Like,
right, exactly. So you just throw your goons in the front here, send your reaver into the main, and kill every probe he has immediately. It's great.
do you get speed or do you just go with slow shuttles?
You can go slow shuttle. It's fine. Because like he'll have like 1 reaver and 6 goons or something versus 1 reaver, a shuttle, and 6 goons. It's like basically even. So he has to have every goon here. So you just send it up to the main.
Do you actually commit with the goons at the front, or do you just like try to
Depends.
like jockey him into trying to defend it?
It depends. I mean, if he panics and sends all his goons up, then absolutely you go in and kill the
Yeah,
lone
yeah, yeah.
reaver.
But like if he keeps his stuff there, then you don't actually have to attack it. You just
No, you just kill every probe he has, and then take your natural, and you're super far ahead.
Probo.
when you're dropping a reaver trying to kill probes, do you click like the last probe in the line as they run away, or like how do you get the scarab actually hit?
I don't know, to be
Oh,
honest.
sick. Yeah, I think it's a gambling.
No, I think so. I know that when you, like if you were dropping here, you want your reaver to touch the minerals, because then the scarab will spawn partially through the minerals
Oh, yeah.
and it'll pop through. If you have a gap here, then it'll bug out. So you want your reaver to touch the minerals. But other than that, I don't know about like chasing and all that. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that helps a lot actually.
Cool.
And I feel like a lot stronger if I can actually do like the standard way to play this matchup.
Yeah, it's fun too. Like Goon Reaver is actually a lot of fun. I think I enjoy it a lot. Okay,
Thanks.
so
Thanks for the help.
anytime. Thanks for coming. It's been a lonely couple weeks. Like the last 2 or
Well, yeah,
3,
'cause
there's been like 1 person or
been-
0.
I've been like doing casts like when you do this. So-
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. So, Seraph, this is your PVZ. Did you have specific questions, or you just want me to talk in general? Or
So I actually have to head out in a second, so I'm
Okay.
gonna end up catching the bod. But the main issue I had with this one was just determining how committed the Zerg is gonna be, because I'm pretty confident I just over-committed on defense and it hurt me down the line.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I ran into a different issue in a later on game where he went really early muta and I just had nothing. I did 2 Corsairs and that was it. And he had 5
Okay.
mutas.
okay, was it like a 2-hatch muta, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the other game was 2-hatch muta, this
Okay.
one was Hydra.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank
Cool. Yep. Okay, Forge. Silverpool. So this is where the 205 comes into effect here. So like, he can't be putting down a hatchery until 205. So like, you don't have to block at this point. You're taking shots for no reason here because he doesn't have enough money. I mean, he could in theory like cut a drone, but like that's advantageous for you. So like, until like 202 or something, like don't even bother trying to block, and then you can start blocking at 205. So like, if you had done that, you would have gotten a little more time on the hatch. So that's like an optimization, but it's good to know, I think. So this was an overpull, right? I think it was. Yeah, so this was an overpull. So you don't have to go cannon first. In fact, on Eclipse, you can, in theory, go for a 14 Nexus 14 cannon, and you're still safe to to the first Zerlings. So at minimum, you should go for a 13-13. This cannon is premature. And you may have misscouted and thought it was a 9 pull or something, but that's huge. I mean, your Nexus is significantly delayed here. So that's a big deal. 15 gate. 16 pylon. Okay, you get back in the main, that's good. 17 gas. So this is a normal 9 pool reaction or a close position overpull reaction, but on Eclipse you don't have to do this. You can go for a normal timing. Do we lose our probe? No. Okay. You want to stay in the main. There's no reason for you to be out here at this point. The main is the more important place to be because once you're out of the main, they can easily block you from ever getting back in. So unless you like mineral walk while you're in there, you want to stay in the main. Because right now, he has to either have a lair or a hydrogen. Like, if he, well, I guess in theory he could go for like a 5 hatch before gas, but 90% of your games, right now he will have one or the other. But you have no way to know because you left the main. So don't leave the main, I think is the key here. So we're going for standard core opener. You can send a second probe now if you desire, or we can assume that there's going to be a 3 hatch Hydra coming and add cannons appropriately. Our Stargate, our gas. We should cut at 29 because we lost our probe for pylon, +1 and a zealot, and then resume probes. Perfect. Guys on gas. Nice, okay. Corsair. And then, okay, so we're pushing out. So this is fine on some maps, but not fine on others when it comes to a situation where you don't know that a 3 hatch Hydra is coming. Because, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, in theory, he could be pushing this way, and his Hydras would be finishing shortly. So if you're pushing this way and your Zealots are out of position, yep, he does. Nice. Okay, so that's a risk. If you're on a map that has 1 push path, then I don't mind the Zealot push out versus a unscouted Zerg. But if there's 2 push paths, then you should not be pushing out. Or if you do, you need to cover the other area with a probe or something, preferably close to them, so that you can back these Zealots up.
For a map like this, then would you recommend just sending a probe or like something else, or would he just have to assume like there are Hydras coming and put down more cannons?
Yeah, if you don't scout if you don't have any scouting information at all, you either have to gamble or assume that things are coming. So my preference is to be safe. And the way that you would do that in this scenario is when your Corsair is about halfway done, you add 1 or 2 cannons. If you only add 1, then then it has. So let me just get to the point where I'm talking. So right now, if he starts 2 cannons, he will be safe against a 3 hatch Hydra. And to prove it real quick, the Hydras are on the way, and they're about right here. If the Zealots are here, and you have 2 cannons starting to morph, he's fine. He can block the chokes here. 1 cannon's going to be enough to fight this tiny group, and you'll have time to get up your 3 cannons. But the fact that you move out is a problem. If you moved out this way and saw them coming, then you could, panic, add 2 cannons, and probably survive. But when you're blind, I would say 50% Stargate, add either 1 or 2. If you add 1, you need to make sure that your cannons are back pretty far, and you do not move out with your zealots. If you add 3, then in theory you can push. If there's one lane to push, you can send your zealots down that one lane. But in this scenario, we should definitely keep our zealots back.
You meant 50% of the first Corsair, right?
Yes, and that's safe versus like a 973. In theory, if they're doing like a 2-hatch Hydra or something like that, then it could hit even earlier. So that's potentially unsafe, and you would have to pull probes and fight with your zealots. But the fact that he saw the 3rd hatch means that you can pretty safely assume that it's not a super aggressive Hydra build. So yes, 50% Stargate when you see 3 hatch but no tech. Add 2 cannons and you'll always be safe. Okay. Citadel's coming. So here we panic, we bring everybody back. Yep, we're bringing the zealots back. So we're not going to die here, but he has already done significant damage because we have 1 cannon dead and a probe pull. But we're not dead, which is great. Our instant reaction, 3 cannons, is good. We can cancel this +1. It will not survive long enough in this scenario because our cannons are back. I guess in theory he could cut Hydras, in theory, but so you could hold on to it for a little bit, but I don't mind canceling it. Instantly make a new gate, instantly make a new forge is the key. Pulling out of the 2nd gas is good. I like it. But we want to keep this Corsair active. Oh, we have 2. Okay, that's good. So you can keep 1 back. That's fine. So because we have the wall, we are safe against this push, and we have a good number of zealots. But we need to watch for more Hydras. So more Hydras are popping. So we need to add more cannons. So we do. Very good. Archives is coming. You need another forge, because he should be taking this one out right now. If he was doing everything right, he would be taking out your gate and forge right now. So you would need another forge. Okay, you make it. Putting back in gas, that's good. I like resuming the probes. So the specific question was, how do I know how aggressive he's going to be? You need to be watching larva. Is the number 1 thing, is to watch what's coming out of the eggs, but it's also the lair and additional hatches. And like Evo chambers is typically what the Zerg will come out with. So in this case, if you were active with your Corsairs, which so far you have done everything I've said just right after I say it. Okay, not right now. But, okay, are we scouting? No? So, killing Overlords is great if you can during this situation, the defending against the 3-hatch Hydra, but that's not the important bit. Like, killing Overlords is gravy, but we need to know that there's drones coming out here, and we need to know that there's a lair and a 4th hatchery. That is the tell that we need to transition out. So even if we kill these 2 Overlords, which we shouldn't, if these Hydras come over, we'll probably only get 1. Maybe we'll get both, but we don't know what's coming out of these eggs at this point. And it looks like we lose the Corsair. So right now we're blind again. So earlier we were blind seeing it coming, and now we don't know if he's massing Hydras or drones. So we have to assume and add even more cannons. If he was going for mass Hydra, which he could be based on the scouting information we have, we would be dead with these 5 cannons. Actually 4 cannons, because this one's unpowered. So we would be completely dead right now. So this Corsair, sure, it got 2 Overlords, but we don't know what Zerg is doing. So I think...
have a clarifying question.
Sure.
So this Zerg, did he open like a 973 free hatch Hydra here, and then that's why he basically didn't have a lair until like 5 minutes or whatever?
Yes. It looks... Let's see exactly. It looks like it was a 973. It was darn close if it wasn't. So that's... Yes, this was exactly 973 once he sends his drones to mine.
Okay.
And this was like a medium-ish version. So like he cuts now. So this is a fairly light but not crazy light version. So in this scenario, a good follow-up would be a DT drop or DT High Templar drop. Because he's droning out of it, but he put on enough pressure that we need to have a significant number of cannons, but he's droning out of it, so we need to punish him. So in this exact game where he went for, a control group and a half of Hydras, I like a Templar drop to come out of it. But to do that, we need to scout. So I think that's the key here is, when you're in this scenario, don't kill these overlords. Look at what's coming out of the eggs. So right when you... Go ahead.
Sorry. So earlier when you were saying, like, we need to see this layer in this fourth hatchery, and that's a tell that we need to transition. And you're probably about to get to this, but do you just mean, like, transition into... potentially a drop and building up an army, or you
not
wouldn't
attacking anymore? That's what he means. Probably.
Right.
less cannons?
The main
more-
thing is the cannons, and resuming probes. Or I mean, you should be pumping out a few probes here and there, but
Hey, Crane.
yeah.
While you were on that same topic, I mean, I know you were answering that, but while you're on that same topic, you were asking, or you were saying that you like to storm drop. Can you explain when you do that, or what you're... So we defend, and when is that happening? I guess, like, 'cause that's kind of good. I need to do more aggressive drops and stuff. So I'm
Sure.
curious, like, when you're doing that, or is it after the third, or is it, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Or is it 8 gates, and then we're trying to, Go
Sure.
ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So I have a full 3-hatch Hydra defense video almost done, except I forgot one line that I meant to put into it, and so now I have to redo it. So that's coming, but basically, if you think of the 2 extreme examples of what Zerg could be doing right now, so if we're right here, and let's say we lost our Corsair, or we're just not scouting with it, right now, either we need 10 cannons up and High Templar in order to survive a Hydra all-in, or if Zerg cut at like 8 Hydras, we need to be pressuring them right now. So like that spread of reactions is wild, right? Like 12 cannons is so many minerals. That's a ridiculous amount of minerals. But that's what you need if he's going all in. So we need to be able to see what he's doing. So that's why this Corsair is so important, and that's why at the pro level, even though at our level a 4-gate speed push typically works better than a Stargate build versus 3-hatch Hydra, because you can fight the Hydras with the Zealots. At the pro level, they still go Stargate because they need to see when they're transitioning out. So scouting is the number one thing. So when you're defending this 3-hatch Hydra, you're going to constantly add on your cannons, and you're going to tech towards your High Templar to survive. But then right when you see the Zerg transition out, meaning you see lair, you see drones, you see extra hatches, you see evo chambers, potentially a second gas as well. Those are all signifiers that they're transitioning out and they're no longer going to pressure you. That can happen off of 4 hydras if they want. That could happen off of 20 hydras. So the exact reaction that you need to take depends heavily on that. So the extreme example, where they go crazy on hydras, you need 12 cannons and storm. So that's what we're pushing for. But let's say that they cut a little bit earlier than going all in. So this is a little bit more conservative than what I'm talking about, but let's say they make like 2 to 3 control groups of hydras, they force a crap ton of cannons, and then they stop. And then they just start droning and getting lair and everything. Well, in that scenario, we are teching, we are producing probes here and there during this defense, we're adding gates, you know, we're still progressing our build, while Zerg has just halted all of their development and produced hydras. So we don't have to do any pressure in that specific scenario. We can just sit. Right when we see that they're macroing up again, we just sit, we resume probes, we add our gates, we get our robo, we do a nice mid-game push, and the Zerg should roll over and die because they've spent so long making hydras instead of developing. So that's when they have like 2 or 3 control groups of hydras. If we back off a little bit, which is a game kind of like this, where he went for like 1.5 control groups of hydras. In this scenario, we're well on our way to Templar tech, right? And he's hurt himself by making this amount of hydras, but his lair is up, for example, and he's got hatches coming up. He's going to be on 6 hatchery relatively soon. So like he's not in horrible shape. So if we sat back in that first example, we would be behind in the mid game. He could take these 6 hatches, he could just drone up like crazy, take a 4th base, and then when we push out at 12 minutes, he has enough stuff and he just defends. So in this scenario, we need to pressure back, and the natural way to do that is to use Templar tech, because we already have it. So what I would do in this scenario is when we start seeing the drones come out, which is, so about right now, if you're active with your Corsair, you'll notice that he's transitioning out, because you'll see the lair, you'll see this hatchery, and in a second,
So
we'll see drones.
We need to worry about observers soon anyways, right? Is that when you're starting to get shuttled then, I guess? Like,
Well, observers are not really a concern at this point, no. I mean, you
no,
will...
Layer's not done, but I'm saying you'll get lurker, but I'm saying when are you... You're saying you want to attack with Templar drops, so when are you adding the robo to do
Right.
that?
So in this exact game, if I was playing this game and I was active with my Corsair, which is not a guarantee, but in theory, I would add my robo right now. Like, I would see this and this hatchery, and I would go, he's transitioning out, I'd throw down my robo and go for a storm drop immediately. Like, I would have High Templar coming out right now. The DT, I mean, it's kind of a gamble because there's an Overlord right here, but the first thing that should come out of this gateway should be a High Templar. But let's say I make a Templar here, I make my robo, the next thing that comes out is another Templar and then a DT. And then right when the robo finishes, make my shuttle, grab 1 or 2 High Templar and a DT, and I would go straight over and start dropping.
And then behind that, are you trying to do a 2-1-8 gate or something
Yes.
like that?
Exactly. So
That answers my main question. I just want to
Sure.
know when you're getting that. You know what I mean? Like how
Yep.
soon, or that's all.
Yep.
Okay.
as soon as they're transitioning out, if you've decided that Templar drop is your follow-up, as soon as they transition out, drop your robo. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah,
Eh.
I feel like it's not bad either because you'll need that robo
Right.
observers eventually.
Exactly. And it's effective for a couple of reasons. One is he won't have Overlord speed because his lair is super late. So in theory, if he rushes for it, he will probably have it on time. But
Are you making 6 Templars instead of like the normal 3 to 4 then, because you're going to do drops? Or
yeah, you have to make up for it. Yes.
okay.
So your standing army wants 4. So if you, I usually take 1 High Templar and 1 DT, usually, because of that exact reason. But the fact that he doesn't have Overlord speed means he's unlikely to see it coming, because his Overlords are less likely to be in good positions. And if you get a DT in the main, he's screwed when he doesn't have Overlord speed. So
And if you're better than us and you kept your Corsair alive, you clear a path, right?
exactly, yep.
Alright.
So that's, going back to the whole spectrum of 3 Hatch Hydra. That's if they went for like fairly heavy, where like a control group and a half maybe of Hydras. In the scenario where they like go into Hydras and then immediately come out, where they make like 1 round of Hydras, like less than a control group, that's when Zealot speed becomes, really powerful. And the reason for that is because if there are Zealots are really strong against low numbers of Hydras, and you haven't spent a ton of money on cannons in that scenario. You probably have 4, maybe 5 in that scenario. So you can immediately, if they go for a super low Hydra count, you can immediately get legs, add up to 4 gateways, and go into Zealot speed lots and pressure the Zerg in that scenario.
But you
And
probably lost your +1, right?
usually, yes, but it's still, you want to keep it, but it's still effective to do the push, even if you've lost the +1.
Okay.
There is a breakpoint with Zealots with +1 versus Hydras, so it's really nice to have, but in that scenario where he's got like 6 Hydras, it doesn't take a lot of Zealots to be a problem. You make a couple rounds, you get your Zealot legs, and you push out, and your goal isn't to kill the Zerg, your goal is to force not drones. If you do a game where where he cuts quickly, and you don't do a drop, and you don't do a Zealot pressure, then you will lose that game, period. Like, that game is lost. Because forcing the number of cannons that they force off of like 6 Hydras, and then going straight into drones, their eco is so good that you just cannot compete with it. So you have to do some kind of counter pressure in that scenario, whether it's a fast Zealot legs push or a Templar drop. But you got to do one or the other. So that was a long-winded way to tell you
But
all
I think
that.
that's an important statement, though. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because what do you do once you've defended it? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I think those are the 3 scenarios that I've come into. Knowing exactly when to do which is up to argument. How many Hydras do you see before you decide if it's Zealot or Templar or none? That's hard to say, but
This is like 70% of PVZ right now. Every Zerg
Is it?
now making Hydras, dude. It's like
Yeah.
crazy.
I think it's a good unit.
I mean, like, just to pressure, right? To kill the Forge and Gate.
Yeah.
I'm saying everyone's doing it. They'll stop. They're not
Right.
all inning. They're just doing it for the pressure.
Right. And it's super strong. But the key to all of that is use your Corsair to see how they're transitioning out. That's the number 1 thing that you're doing with the Corsair. The number 2 thing you're doing with the Corsair is you're seeing minerals, so that if shit hits the fan, you can drill probes somewhere. And then only if you're not going to lose the Corsair, kill some Overlords. But if there's any chance that you're going to lose focus and lose the Corsairs, don't even try. Like, don't even try. It's not worth it if you're going to lose the Corsair, because you need to see that larva. Plus, if Zerg goes for a Spire after, you're going to need either Corsairs or Dark Archon anyway. So, you really, really, really don't want to lose your Corsairs against 3-hatch Hydra. Yep. So here, like we overcommitted to cannons because we didn't see when he was transitioning out, and he's droned up to 46 because we didn't counter pressure and we cut probes here. And it looks like you probably cut probes at a normal time, maybe. But because you cut to add all these cannons, you have to resume to get back up to 45 to 50 range on 2-base. So the lack of counter pressure and the lack of probe production means you've lost this game. And then of course, no observers and no goon range is a problem now, but again, that's a symptom of not scouting with that Corsair. So, yep, this game is done. Okay.
Yeah, sorry for asking so many questions on his replay. It's just I deal
please
with
do.
the same crap, right? It's like
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always down for questions.
PVZ is good, but that style's tough. It can be against.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's especially when you don't know your options. Like when you think that it's just you sit back and then you do a push out relatively late and don't know that you can do certain timings, it feels really garbage. But once you know the options, it actually feels not so bad.
How screwed are we if we don't do a ton of damage with that drop?
It's pretty bad. Yeah. You don't have to do a ton of damage, but you do have to do some damage. Like if you get one good storm and kill like 4 or more drones, and then your DT forces a pull, that's probably break even, and anything on top of that is gravy.
Yeah, cool.
So. So Reef, this is your game.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
All right. How are you?
Wife is pregnant, so I apologize. I'm a little late.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, she is 31 weeks.
Nice.
On Thursday, so coming up to the 40 mark pretty quick.
First kid?
Yes.
Nice.
So.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Yep.
So.
You'll have fun and also be miserable at times, but that's okay. I have a 4-year-old.
Oh, perfect. So you do still play StarCraft, huh?
I try to.
Yeah, it must be possible. Crane's
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I've turned to Zerg now apparently, so I don't know. Kind of becoming a casual player.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, thanks again for checking out my game. So this was a tournament that was arranged by another Tier 3 player, and I had played, and I had been doing pretty well. This was in the semifinals, and I lost this game, and I was very disappointed because it's like a 45-minute game, and I thought I had him on the ropes for a long time. The biggest question that I have from this game is, once you get kind of into the later game and the tanks are clumped up and they have 3-3, you know, at your doorstep, you know, what do you do?
Okay.
That's kind of what my question is.
Okay. Mine too, actually, but I'll try. I just to start out, your early game is unbelievably far better than the first reps that I saw from you. Like, so
Thank you.
really good job cleaning that up.
You.
This
I
looks
have been trying
really
so
good.
hard.
It looks really good. You've done well.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. I appreciate the notice. I have been trying very hard. I've been playing every day,
Nice.
practicing on a macro alone map, and
Okay.
practicing on
Mhm.
maps. You know, it's so hard to do the multitasking. But I feel like it, you know, it does help.
I despise those maps, but some people like them. So, hey, you do
I
you.
like them. I like them. The reason I occasionally do it is because it's just so hard.
Okay.
It's just, you know, it's hard, and I feel like when I'm in a game, you know, it does help out a little.
Right. Okay.
So I scouted him last.
Yep.
Here.
So let's see what you see. So we see no command center, but we do see an SCV,
Yeah.
which implies some kind of expand, some kind of bunker expand. We know it's not Rax FE, we know it's not Refinery FE, and we know it's not like a 12cc or a CC first of some sort. So
I have played him before. I actually played him in a CPL match, and both games he went very fast pushes. So he
Okay.
would either go like a 2-fact push, or you know, like a real quick push.
okay.
So I kind of expected. I was thinking I would do a 21 Nexus, and then I kind of saw the SCV there, and I'm like, you know, he's waiting to see what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
You know. So that's why I sent the
Okay.
Dragoon out right away.
Yeah, you pretty much always want to do that. Yeah. Okay, so you're going for a 28 Nexus now.
Yes. So
Okay.
yes, that's what I was shooting
Yep.
for, is a 28 Nexus,
So that's perfect. Okay.
because it gives me a little bit more units,
Mhm.
and you know, still have a chance to. Yeah, so I see that bunker right there, and I'm like, okay, he's probably expanding, which
So-
is unlike him.
Okay. So one thing just to note, while I notice it, you can, if you're doing a 28 Nexus, you can optionally remove one probe from gas after you start your range, and that
Oh.
will get your Nexus up a little bit faster. And then when you start your Nexus, put a probe back onto gas.
Okay.
If you're the kind of person who will forget to put it back, don't bother. But
Yeah.
it will prevent this like float that you have here, and it'll get your Nexus down a little bit faster. So that's
Mhm.
just
Yeah, that makes perfect
something
sense.
that you can try if you will remember to put it back. But so you actually want to poke with this Dragoon and see if there's a command center here or not. In theory, seeing this could still be a 2-factory push. Just, you know, trying to hide it.
Really? Okay.
It's, you know, it's not an optimal 2-factory, but a suboptimal 2-factory still is really effective if you are thinking that there's a command center here. So you just rush forward until you can see it and rush back. In theory, especially with this bunker positioning, you should only take shield damage and still be able to see it with 3 Marines like he has here. So just poke forward, see if it's there, and run back. That's fine. Because he went for some kind of factory build, your second Dragoon needs to sit in the choke.
Vultures.
Exactly.
Okay. I gotta write that down.
Yep. So if you saw a command center with your probe, then you don't have to keep the Dragoon here. You can send it forward. But because he didn't go for a Rax FE type play, he has to have a factory. So you have to keep your second Dragoon in the choke, just to be safe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so let's see your follow-up here. Okay, you're beating on the bunker. That's good.
I have a question.
Yep.
Wouldn't he have seen the vulture go out at the front? Or is it just because it's going to run by?
Well, two things. One, the timing, I think, and I think it's a little bit map dependent, but I believe the timing works out such that the vulture would have gotten out in between the probe being here and the Dragoon being here in this exact game.
Oh, okay.
So he could have went up into the middle, dodge the first Dragoon and then come in.
Mm.
I know that because I've lost a lot of games that way. Okay, so if we're assuming that there's a command center there, I think, man, I haven't done 28 Nexus in a while. You want to get your robo a little bit faster than this, though. It's a little bit delayed. If I remember right, the standard.
I think it's robo at 30 usually.
Yeah, I think the standard follow-up is 28 Nexus, 29 robo, 30 goon, and then, oh shit, what is it? Oh gosh, it's been a while. I've been doing 23 Nexus like exclusively lately, and 28 fell out of my head completely.
I think in your video you said there's some type of cut around 29 or 30 where you like do a bunch of things at once, and I think it's get the goon and then get the second gateway. Something like that.
There's two ways to do it. There's one if you suspect a two-factory, and there's one if you don't.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Anyway, it's just fallen out of my brain right now. So, oh,
That's okay.
Liquipedia loaded. Nice. Yep, that's the one I'm looking for. So the one that you would do if you did not suspect a two-factory is a 29 Robo, 30 Dragoon, 32 Pylon, and on 33 you'll be supply blocked for a period of time, and you add 2 gateways at that point.
Okay.
So that's the normal follow-up with a 28 Nexus. If you suspect a two-factory, that's when you do like a hard cut and you go 29 Robo, 29 Dragoon, 31 Gate, Pylon, Dragoon. And then when the Pylon finishes, you can resume probes.
Production.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
versus a two-factory. If you see that coming, you can, if you specifically scout it, or if you just highly suspect it, then you can do that cut, and it's pretty effective. I think I need to do 28x more often because I just totally forgot the build. With 4 goons here, you can pressure the bunker again, at least until there's siege, because 4 goons will 2-shot a tank. So if he comes out to pop your Dragoons, you can pressure the tank and 2-shot it if he isn't looking at or if he doesn't react fast enough. You can 2-shot with 4 goons. So pressuring the bunker with 4 goons is appropriate here, at least until you see a siege or multiple tanks. But if you don't have the APM, you can macro. That's fine too. Alright.
Yeah, so one of the things I've been trying to focus on more is just trying to keep, like you're saying, the macro going,
Yep.
trying to keep everything in my base going well.
Okay.
'Cause then I get into good games like this that are 45 minutes long.
Nice. Got the bunker, that's good. Okay, so I don't understand the forge and the cannon here.
Yeah, I did it because I have a good friend that I play very often who gets a lot of vultures in my base, and
Okay.
it was not. It's a tick of mine. It just makes me feel a little bit more
Okay.
comfortable. That's all I can say.
Okay, that is significant investment that you don't need to make, because you have mobile cannons, you have Dragoons.
Yeah.
Because he has siege here, there's no reason for your goons to be at the front right now.
Okay.
You're not going to do any damage because he's got
Yeah.
3 siege tanks deep in there. So normally when I'm at the point where I can't pressure the bunker anymore, because of siege or because of a certain number of tanks that will outpressure me, I'll just leave one Dragoon here, or a probe if I don't want to, if I'm not paying attention enough. I can put a probe right here so I don't lose a Dragoon, and just bring them all back home, and just block your choke with Dragoons.
Okay.
Because they're not adding any value sitting at the front here. I mean, you can leave a couple if you want, but it's more important to sit and block your choke here, and also to clear out your third rather.
I'm pretty sure because I just heard him do siege. I think I'm about to expand.
Okay. Which, okay. Okay, so you're kind of balancing. So the forge and the cannon. So the normal forge timing in PvT is when you, well, when you scout that your opponent is let me back up a little bit. So for one, your robo needs to be producing observers now. In fact, you should probably you should have a observer already in his base at this point. And that's the most important part of this portion of the game, is to see what Terran is doing. Because the extreme ends of what he's doing is he could have 5 factories right now to be ready to push, or he could have an armory and
Ready to expand.
and a command center right now. And your reaction to those needs to be very different. So you should be rushing for an observer immediately with this robo, and you have an observatory, but you haven't made one yet, which is very late. So that's a significant issue. What you do after that is significant as well. Usually the two options are to either go for a very fast third, meaning you take a third, well, actually taking a step back before that, before your observer gets there, you have to split your build and decide what you're doing. And so you can either take a very fast third, which would be off of somewhere between 7 and 10 Dragoons. That's a fast third style. Or you can go for a 2-base Arbiter style, in which case you would get your natural gas almost immediately after your natural finishes and start your Citadel specifically for Arbiter tech. So you would immediately be dropping your Stargate and your Archives.
Okay.
Or you could do a style kind of like what you're doing, where you go for a heavy gateway style, which is very uncommon, I would say. I don't think most Protoss do this type of style, but it's in theory you can do this kind of style, but
yeah, Sate Zero was the one who actually mentioned it to me.
Okay.
I've tried going fast Arbiters, and I just never seem to do that well with them.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, why don't you try putting down a few more gateways before you take your third?
Sure.
Just try it. See if you like it.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, it can't hurt. I'm going to have the gateways later anyways. So...
Yeah, you'll be safe versus 4, 5, 6 fact play, for sure. Against a strong Terran, they can definitely take advantage of it, because a 2-base Protoss will lose to a 2-base Terran of even skill. So you have to either have the tech advantage or the base advantage. So that's why 2-base armor or fast third are the more common builds. But you can certainly go for like a 6-gate and delay the Terran as long as possible on their third.
That's exactly what I end up doing.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I get an observer into his base at some point.
Okay.
And I see that he's about to take a third. And
Okay.
I actually delay his third for a while.
Okay. So if you're doing this style, I would stop at 6 gates.
6 gates.
Yeah. It's so as a general rule in Brood War as a Protoss player, each base can typically support between 3 and 4 gateways, and that's hugely variable. Like if you look at PVZ, you don't, you eventually will get to 8 gateways, but for a long time you're putting on so much tech and you're building probes and pylons that it takes a long time to get to that 8 gateways. But your 2 bases with 8 gateways, that's pretty typical. So on 2 bases here, you can't support 10 gateways. In theory, you could support 8, but then you're spending everything on army. So you won't have money to expand or to build probes or tech. So I would recommend 6 gateways if you're going to do something like this, cutting there.
Cool. Yeah, I wrote it down.
Also, these 3 gateways, Dragoons can't get out. So you need to have gaps either in the pylons or in the gateways, because these 3 you can't produce Dragoons out of. If you try, they will cancel when they finish.
Really?
Yep. It might come up in this game if you make goons out of them, but we'll see. Yep. So when this one finishes, it's going to say, maybe I'm wrong, but hopefully it's going to say building exit is blocked, and it'll cancel the goon. See, no goon came out.
What the hell? Oh, I did not know
Yep.
that.
So a tip that you might be able to remember, if there, and I think I'm remembering it right, if there's a line of 4 pylons vertically like this, then you can put your gates like this, but you have to have a gap after the 4th one. So you can't align more than 4 pylons in a row vertically and make your gates like this next to them, because they'll block.
That's crazy.
So, yep. Okay, so you are containing.
So I see the 3rd right there.
Nice. And you're in a good position. You go in, okay.
So this
Nice.
is the technique that you had
Yes.
told me about. Was
Really
click
good.
past the tanks, and boy did it help.
Oh,
me
that is a fantastic engagement.
out. I'm feeling good at this point.
Nice.
Size,
Is
3rd. And that's what I was saying, Crane. Like the last time we sat and we talked and you helped me out, you can see the proof right there.
that's amazing. Like that's really, really well done there. At this point, you gotta back up. Well, you either commit to killing the tanks or you gotta back up. But once you're pure goon, you want to back up. But that initial engagement was really good. I wish Cold Warp Gates was complaining about not knowing how to engage Terran, and that was like perfect. So
So
hopefully he
I was
watched the
very
mod.
lucky that he had all those mines there. I mean, if
Yeah.
he hadn't put all those mines, I probably wouldn't have done as well.
I think, I mean, you still would, because let's go back to it. You still would, because the mines, yes, they're. Is this right? I think this is. Yeah, I didn't go too far back. So the mines will deal damage, but if the mines aren't there, then your zealots would have survived and
still,
lived to
yeah.
deal damage, or the tanks would splash upon them. So I think he would have done just as well, but that's because his vulture count was so low.
Yeah.
So like, that is really nice though, yeah. That's just nice to watch tanks die. So yeah, that's really good. I'm super happy with that. The bad news though is you're down 12 probes.
Yeah.
So
You know what? I can explain that actually. I just recently changed my hotkeys. I used to put my nexuses on 4, 5, and 6,
mhm.
and a few people had suggested to move them onto 8, 9, and 0. I think you were actually one of them as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I
So
do
I'm
that.
Still, I'm still getting used to that.
Okay, that's
Um,
fair.
So I just changed it last week.
Mhm.
So it's been I know it's 10 o'clock for you on the East Coast, so feel
Yep.
free to just let me know whenever you need to go.
Okay.
But
I'll probably stop at
yeah, so
10:30 then.
it
One thing I want to point out here is, so zealots are what allow you to be aggressive against Terran.
okay.
So right here, like right now, when you see you only have one zealot, you need to pull back.
Okay.
And then just, so this group that you're sending will then allow you to be aggressive again. So if you just back up to here or even here, and then, so let's watch what this group does without these 6 Dragoons. And then imagine if those 6 Dragoons had backed up. Because these Dragoons, they killed some probes, or SCVs, but they didn't kill any like fighting units. So when these Zealots come in, if you had 6 Dragoons right now, the game is over. Because these tanks are dead. You send these Zealots up here to
I
hit
still
these
have
tanks,
6 goons.
and you have 7 goons now. You have the 6 that had died plus this one that just came in. So these Zealots kill these 2 tanks, they run up, kill these 2 tanks, and the game is over.
Damn, I was so close.
Yep. So I think just whenever you run out of Zealots, back up. That's the kind of the moral of that. And then you can always go back in. I mean, you don't have to back up far. Just back up here, wait for your reinforcements, and go. So I think if you do this style where you get a bunch of gateways relatively early, that's kind of a critical thing. Is you're not all in, but you're certainly behind in everything but army. You're behind in eco, which you're not that far now because you've dealt significant SCV damage, but you're a little bit behind in eco.
Yeah.
Compared to a Terran, you're significantly far behind because it's 2 about to be 3 base versus 2 about to be 3 base,
Sure.
which is not where you want to be. But your tech is behind. He's got vessels on the way, and you are nowhere near any kind of Arbiter or Templar tech.
Yeah.
So even though you've done all that damage, you are behind now. You could have killed him. With one small decision would have done it, and maybe you can kill him here. I mean, in theory, if you did what you just did with this group, you probably could, but killing this third's good too. Containing is always good here. Nice. Again, perfect. So if you just keep repeating this and growing like this, then you're in great shape. But you just
So I was feeling real good at this point because
Yep.
I felt like I reset his tank count
yes.
and I denied his 3rd. So I'm feeling
Yep.
pretty good at this point.
So now you're in good shape, yeah.
And yeah.
Yep. Just back up out of tank range. Bleeding the Dragoons here is not good. You can just sit here, hold positioned right here, and it's really hard for him to push up. For one, I mean, if he tried to attack move up, with the amount of goons you had initially, if he just attack moved up, you would be able to fight this number of tanks. So he has to siege up, and that's slow. So he would like siege a tank here, you just back up a little more, he sieged up another one, and by that time you should have reinforcements ready to go. Ah, that's unfortunate. You right-clicked your Nexus. Yeah, so losing those goons is really painful. It wasn't worth that number of goons to delay this command center. It was at first, like the initial denial was certainly worth it. Like coming up here in a second. Like here, obviously this is good denying it, and then the push right here, this is excellent as well. And you should try to delay it like you are here, like you are delaying it, and staying here is good. But this part
Yeah,
right
so
here is
I'm
not worth it.
using the high ground to my advantage, really.
Well, you are right now, but right now, when you get in siege range here, if all these goons just ran up here, right now I would back up, is what I'm trying to get at, I guess,
Yeah,
because
same thing from earlier. If I don't have
Right.
any zealots, keep back.
exactly. So you bleed. You know, this is 9 dragoons that you lose for no value here, which is significant, right? What's your macro and you're teching? Okay, you're teching. You're getting arbiters. It's good. You got 3,000 gas. Whatever. It's fine. Okay. So you're evenish at this point. I think you've made a lot of opportunities to get ahead, and you've like almost got ahead, but it's like not quite there. 70 probes is the limit, so it's okay to be at 70, but it's a little bit high, I would say. 65 is typical.
Okay.
70 is if you're like actively mining off of 5 or 6 bases, then 70 is more appropriate. But the fact that you're on 3, about to be 4, means that your probes are not as efficient as they could be. So
There's just not enough patches.
right. So if normally you stop around 65, no matter what in PvT. 70 is okay if you're on high base count, but in that situation you need like a crap load of gates, which you've got quite a few, but I'm talking like 30.
Yeah, I think I got to about 25 gates in this game.
Okay.
So
That's really good. So you're doing great here. You've got you normally want 2 control groups, or just under 2 control groups of dragoons with your army, so you're a little light on dragoons, but you're close to maxed out. You got arbiters. Everything's looking pretty good. So there's no reason to attack here, right? He's on 3 base. You are on 1, 2, 3, 3 about to be 4. Actually, he's on 2 mining bases versus 3 about to be 4. And you are not maxed yet. So you have no reason to attack. I would absolutely sit in this scenario, which I went a little bit too far back, but you can absolutely deny this 4th. That's exactly what you want to do. And you can posture with your army so that he's fully denied here. That's great. But the actual push into here, you want to do that only if you are ahead in bases, which you are. If you have a sufficient number of gates, which I would say you do have. If you're maxed, which you're not, and you're not only you need to be maxed, you need to have your whole maxed army out. So if there's zealots making in these gateways, for example, you want to wait until they're out, and then go in. So the ideal, and also you want stasis. So if you sat for another, I think there's 1 energy per second, but if you sat until you had that one last round of zealots plus these 2 stasis, you probably would have killed them, because it's going to be like a minute from now, but just imagine you have a stasis here and a stasis here and a maxed Protoss army jamming in all at once. This would probably fold to that. If not, you would trade efficiently and then produce another round of zealots and keep expanding, and he's on the back foot. So I would say in this scenario, you should just sit right here, have your army here. You can deny the space, which is great, but pushing in here is not so good.
This is the patience, yeah.
Right.
The patience. Yeah, see, these are the types of things. I feel like I've gotten a pretty good handle, as you see in this game. Because he just got upgraded to tier 2, actually, Dragon's Sword did. So,
Okay.
you know, I'm feeling good. He just got
Yeah.
promoted, you know. I'm really keeping up with him
Right.
in the first 20 minutes of this game.
And you still are. Yeah, you're still you're ahead here. I mean, it was not ideal to throw zealots here, but you still traded well because of the mine positions. So you're still in really good shape right now.
So this is where the game starts to get a little interesting because now this is what my question initially was.
Yep.
He's starting to knock at my doorstep.
Right.
He's feeling a little overconfident.
So,
And
and I'm not interrupting you because I try to be rude. I only have a few minutes, so I'll try to get into it.
no worries.
So the first thing you need to do is see that it's coming.
Yeah.
So you do have an observer here, and you have your army here, but you don't see that he's pushing out. So you need to have your observer in position to see a push out. That's the most important thing in PvT, is knowing where a Terran army is. And because observers are relatively cheap and your robo isn't super active in PvT except for that in the mid and late game, there really is no excuse to not see a Terran push out. So seeing him push out is the first step. If you had, then you would absolutely destroy this army, because you could take this, set it right here, take this, set it right here, kill him. This is not a big army. Like, it's 3-1, but this, you have a 40 supply lead. You have arbiters. You have +2, which is the critical upgrade for PvT, and you have 2 stasis. So this army would be just melted if you had seen it coming. So right now you should be engaging if you had seen it. But the fact that he's right here is super painful. But it's still not the end of the world. So you don't want to attack at this point. You want to wait and be patient, because he is not actively killing anything when he's here. I mean, he is, but that's because you're not moving your army. So in theory, if he's sitting right here sieged, you can take this army and just send it up here, and he's doing nothing. He's accomplishing nothing by sitting here. In theory, right? Like, he's not actively shooting buildings or killing probes. So in theory, you can take this army, send it up here, and make your arc up here. Take this army, send it right here, and make an arc here, and then push in. Just be patient. That's the important thing. That's what I'm getting at. So instead, here, you know, he gets an EMP, which it's on your arbiters without a ton of energy, which is good. But you lose some zealots, you lose some more zealots, you lose a goon, you lose some more goons. You're just bleeding units, right? So it's like the first game that we had went over in the first time we talked. You can bleed units and have 10% of your army fight 100% of their army, or you can have 100% of your army fight 100% of their army. Obviously, you want to engage as soon as you can. So I think that is the big thing, and this is the biggest blunder of the game so far. I like the counterattack. That's smart, but I would say the bleeding into this is the key. So just spread out. Get up here. If he sits here, then you can have a nice arc and engage it. If he pushes in, then you just engage it, sandwich it. Either way, it's really hard for him to actually engage if your army is already out here, which it was.
Yeah.
So right now, if he expands, which it looks like he's not currently, That's so funny. This army just won't die. That's amazing. Yeah. So at this point, the only way out of this for you is to have a bunch of gateways over here and to basically sacrifice all of this and start over, which is not desirable.
So he actually takes down my natural, gets into my main, and I actually defeat him from there because I build a bunch of gates in my fourth
Okay.
at the top right.
Yep.
And I just keep streaming units over.
Okay.
So you can see. He gets this.
Yep.
But I end up actually beating him.
Okay.
Kind of back.
But he gets a fourth. That's
Yeah,
that's the bad part. Terran just needs one base. That's all they need in PvT or in TVP. If Terran's mining off of one base and they have good upgrades and high tank count, then they're still in the game.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yep.
You know, as you can see, you know, your lessons have helped out a lot already.
Yeah, you're doing really well.
So.
Good job.
I wanted this game so bad.
Yeah, you definitely are making opportunities. I think you just the biggest things. I mean, personally, I don't like the gateway style, but it works. It seems to work well for you. Robo getting that observer on time, I think, is huge, and knowing when to pull back your goons, and being patient when there's a big giant army, and just forming that big arc and then executing that same micro. Those are the big things here.
Yeah.
But you're doing really well.
A few tiny tweaks. I could have won this game in 3 different spots.
Absolutely. Yes.
So.
Which is
you
good.
Again for your time. Yeah.
All right. I have to go to bed, so I can't do the last rep that was sent, but I can probably look at it another time. So thank everybody for showing up and asking questions and sharing reps. I'll upload the VOD probably tomorrow, to be honest.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.